Hey guys, welcome to the Desi Crypto Show. Today we have Owen with us, and he's a Solidity developer, and he has developed a lot of interesting things in the crypto space. I think the most popular one, which you would know or you don't know, is 0xmons, which are like degenerative art, and this is something, of course, Owen will explain better. So welcome to the show.
Hey, Diraj, thanks for having me on.
Uh, let's start with a small introduction from you. Like, where, how did you get into crypto? What do you do?
Yeah. So I come from a computer science background. So I have bachelor's in computer science,
Mhm.
and I'm in the United States. So I'm here in California. I first got into crypto because of my friend Zephram,
Mhm.
who people might know as the co-founder of 88MPH. So he encouraged me to do some hackathons. This was a few years ago. We did some hacking together and we won a few prizes. And that was how I first heard about Ethereum. And it wasn't until last summer when a lot of the DeFi projects like Compound and Wi-Fi started doing their various, gov token distribution programs that I
Mhm.
got back in again. And I wanted to start building some small projects. And a lot of those were NFT focused. Um, and that's how my focus came to be with
Mhm.
various NFT projects.
That's awesome. What attracted you towards the NFT projects?
It's lower risk as a developer than building
Uh,
something in DeFi.
awesome. That's an honest answer. That's a very honest answer. I love it. So, what are some projects which you have built, and can you tell us?
Yeah, so the thing that I spend my days working on, so full time, is the 0xmons project. So that has sort of two key components.
Mm-hmm.
One are these NFTs, as you mentioned. They're like pixel monsters that have this AI generating component to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some other NFT tools that allow people to do trades and
Mm-hmm.
other types of operations on their NFTs.
So you've spoken about 0xmons, right? Let's get it a little bit into it. So I see your profile with some weird character and some weird words just messing up my Twitter timeline, right? I will put an image here so people understand what I'm talking about. So just explain what are these weird characters? What are these weird letters? How, like, tell us more
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
So yeah, from a story perspective, the 0xmons are inspired by Pokemon. So there's,
Uh,
creatures, they're sort of meant to be collectible, HP Lovecraft. So
mhm,
there's sort of this Cthulhu influence where you want something sort of dark, mysterious, a little
mhm,
spooky.
mhm,
And then there's also the SVP literary franchise, which is, this online wiki where people write things that are
mhm,
sort of X-Files, either like
mhm,
classified
mhm.
government documents kind of a
Okay.
deal.
Okay.
So those are the three sort of creative influences. The actual like monsters are
Uh-huh.
these ERC 721 tokens.
Uh-huh.
There's 341 of them,
Uh-huh.
and they're created through a creative process that's both human and AI input.
Okay.
So the original images come from a generative adversarial network. It's like,
Mhm,
a generative machine learning model. We
mhm,
trained it on a lot of pixel art images,
mhm,
and now it outputs, new pixel art images. And then we
mhm,
have code to turn that into an animation. So you've got, this animated kind of abstract blob that you can kind of make out. And then it's got a name and description that originally came from GPT-3. So like
mhm,
another powerful generative language model.
mhm,
And after that, there's a human editing process where I go through and I fix the spelling errors and I put it all together as a package. And then
mhm.
that's the whole monster NFT that then gets uploaded and then people can trade.
That sounds awesome. So, correct me if I'm wrong. You used some machine learning and AI to build these characters and also build some story, and then, of course, right? Like you have to manually edit some things, and that's how 0xmons or these monsters were born, right? Like that's so cool. That's so cool. What makes it so unique, right? Like what do you think is about designing with AI or machine learning so interesting?
Yeah, I think there are two things. One is that if you have something automated, it can make it easier to do work that would originally be tedious. Like I also do, normal pixel art on the side, and trying to create, animations frame by frame can take a long time to get something that looks really good. But with, generative code where you can sort of stitch the frames together, you can do it a lot quicker, even if it's a lot rougher, for each animation. So you can do something a lot more quickly. And the other one is there's a lot of types of creativity that you might not expect if you were trying to work with it yourself. So when I was working with GPT-3, a lot of the language models, came out stories. I was thinking, oh, I wouldn't have come up with this by myself, but it's really cool to see them arranged like this. And this is a good prompt for me to extend the story in this direction.
So just a different question. Do you think it is taking away from the artists who are spending a lot of hours creating their art on like an iPad or like drawing? How does it, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think that even with these powerful tools, I don't think we're at the stage where you can automate, maybe the entire process of creating something like a comic book or cartoon, right? You might be able to get very good, individual images that you can base things off of or individual snippets. But I think there's a lot of authorial direction and, creative direction that you still have to go with to put them all together. So I think that it's good to encourage and talk about these as sort of tools to help creativity. But it's almost like once you have these tools, there's a sort of new type of thinking about them that can make them useful that isn't necessarily putting artists out of a job.
I agree. Right? Like you can use this to add on to whatever you're doing instead of a replacement. And these things can coexist as well. Very cool. So can you tell us more about the project? Like what do these monsters do and how can someone get it? And is all the monsters distributed or like what's the scene?
Yeah. So currently the plan is that sort of 341 is what we're working with. So I'm not planning on doing any large distributions soon. The exception to that is this one community drop that I've been working on. So a while ago, we had people in the community actually vote on, an image that they wanted, and then everyone submitted stories. So we actually have this one monster that hasn't been minted yet, that's like user created and voted on, which is really cool. And that one is going to be hopefully the one that is sort of mass distributed to people who want to take part in the community, but don't want to buy one off OpenSea. So that is probably going to be the most accessible way. And that will probably also hopefully happen on a layer 2, ideally like ZkSync layer 2, to make it really cheap to mint and distribute those. But right now, like the 341 on mainnet are just sort of what we have. There's not really plans to make any more of them. As for what you can do with them, they're collectible in the way that CryptoPunks are collectible. So, they don't mine a token, they don't do anything. They're just there. If you like it, you can hold on to it. The one cool thing you can do with them is you can encode all of their data on chain. So once you own it, you can make this transaction that takes the image, the story, the name, and sort of packages it all into this one payload that you then sort of put onto the blockchain. And then after that, the website will be able to detect once you've made this transaction, and it can read the data directly. So you don't have to rely on IPFS or Amazon or anyone, just reading directly from on-chain, which, for some people who like art, this is very desirable if they want to know that their art is enduring.
So what does that mean? So are you saying that all those details will live on the Ethereum blockchain and you don't have to rely on a different server? Or if Amazon cloud goes down, then the image can go down, but you've just completely changed the process and put it on the Ethereum blockchain.
Yeah, so you have to take this action because it doesn't happen automatically. If you're willing to pay the gas and the fee to do so, then yes, the animation, the story, the name, all of that is just stored directly on chain. You can retrieve it and play it.
So, very cool, very cool. So like blockchain maximalist or even Ethereum maximalist would love something like this, right? That's crazy. Just a question: can you fight with these monsters, or is that something part of the plan?
Yeah. People have asked about this. I'm a Pokemon fan. I'd love to see that set up.
Yeah.
My short-term plan is it seems really difficult to build out on layer 1. So I'm hoping ideally for smart contract support to come on ZkSync layer 2. And then we can start talking about, more game design for on-chain.
Awesome.
But yeah, game design is not my forte. So I ask that everyone temper their expectations.
Awesome.
Help when I start that.
Awesome. So we find this really interesting. But hey, this is not it, right? Like you're doing other things as well, right? So I read about SudoSwap, like on your website. So what is it? What are you working on? Yeah.
SudoSwap is something that I'm really excited about. It's a little bit like AirSwap on steroids. So people have used AirSwap before, for OTC trading, you want to swap this thing for this thing, you send a link to your friend. SudoSwap expands this out so you can swap any collection of things for any other collection of things. So you can pick, 2 NFTs and some ERC20s and trade it for your friends, ERC20 and some other NFTs. So you can package anything on the left side, and then you can, say you want something else on the right side, and then you send a link to your friend. And if they have all the things, then you just do the swap.
Oh, I did. So I can pack, let's say, one of my Axie and one of my hash mask, and I could trade it for a CryptoPunk and some $100 worth of USDT.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Like I've never heard such a concept before, right? Like you can literally swap anything. So I don't know if you've read this, but Balaji's the guy from Coinbase. He has written this extremely nice post called DeFi Matrix, right? Like how you can I'll send you the link. So he talks about how every asset in the world would be swappable, right? Like even the rice could be a synthetic asset on the blockchain, and you can swap it with Ethereum or even wheat for that matter, and we will have a free economy. So I think that adds on to your idea where like even NFTs are part of this economy. So that's really cool.
Yeah, the one caveat is you have to set all of the items beforehand.
Right.
So unlike Uniswap or something, there's no market maker.
There's no market maker. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it still works, right? Like this is a proof of concept, and then maybe we'll have market makers in future.
Yeah. So I'm really excited by that. It's cool to see different NFT communities like Artblock or Board using them to swap in a trustless manner. Because before this, there are horror stories where they say, oh, I used this person as an escrow and they ran off with both of our NFTs, and then the swap doesn't happen.
Oh my God.
But now, SudoSwap, it uses the 0x exchange contracts behind the scenes. It's like, powerful, audited, well-tested code. And it happens really gas efficiently. You just set all the approvals. You don't ever have to send your NFTs to another contract. And as long as your friend also does the approves, and then they click swap, it's just one transaction, and then they all get swapped.
That's awesome. That's very interesting to hear. Okay, so what else are you working on? Like you just dropped a project yesterday. So can you tell us about that?
Oh, yeah. The other thing that I do is I make some projects that are sort of half serious, half jokes. The one that I released earlier this week is called NFGas. And this came out of a conversation with a friend where we were talking about, what if you did something that played with gas prices? Like this was Zephyr, from 88 MPH again. And he had this idea. He was talking about, what if you had something that you could only send at 0 gas price? So it could only be for flashbots and miners. And he released some code, a library, so you could add this modifier to only allow for 0 gas price, or only allow for not 0 gas price for token transfers. And I was thinking about that. I thought, well, we could extend this and you have this entire range of only transferable at this gas price. And if you do that, it might be cool to turn it into an NFT and then have it all tied together. And then, I kept thinking more and the ideas came together. So the final project is NFGas is a collection of NFTs with IDs from 0 to 1024. So there's 1,025 of them. You can mint any ID at that gas price. So you can mint ID 30 if your gas price for that transaction is set to 30 Gwei. And then once you do that, if you mint the ID 30, you can then send it to other people, but also only with the gas price of 30 Gwei.
Wow.
That's yeah.
That's pretty nerdy and pretty cool, in my opinion. So I want to ask you, right? Like I want to ask you, what do you think of the blockchain space right now, and where do you see it is going? What's your opinion?
Oh, it's a big question.
Yeah.
I think that it's likely that there's going to be broader adoption. The big thing that everyone's talking about this week is El Salvador making Bitcoin legal tender. This seems like a strong catalyst for maybe other smaller nations to consider doing something similar. But I'm not super familiar with both monetary policy or Bitcoin. So I'll talk a bit more about Ethereum, these like EVM chains, because I think that's what I'm more knowledgeable about. I think in the next few years, we'll probably see continued growth for EVM chains. I want to see roll-up succeed. So I want to see projects like Arbitrum, Optimism, ZkSync, handle a lot of the transactions on a cheaper layer too. I think that even as an Ethereum maximalist, we'll probably be in a multi-chain world. So, other things like Cosmos or Solana are probably still going to be, handling certain types of use cases. So there will be a lot of need for this sort of asynchronous messaging where you're trying to, send a message from one blockchain to another. And I think that might end up changing a lot of the ways that people sort of think about how they program their smart contracts or do code, where, you have to think about these delays. Or we might see the rise of new services that, do something similar to what bridges currently do, where, they can custody your funds on one chain and then give you a similar fund on another chain.
Very cool, very cool, very cool. So you are excited about a world beyond base layers, right? Like Ethereum being the settlement layer. You're excited about the roll-ups and the roll-ups and scaling solutions, what we have, and EVM compatible chains, because how these other different specialized chains will work with each other. Which I agree, right? Because a different blockchain might be very good at doing this particular thing, and but still it would want to work with other chains. So that's quite interesting. So I have a question for you, right? You're in the US. You are programming. You're building so many things, right? So what do you see of India and the Indian blockchain ecosystem? How do you perceive it?
Yeah, I'm going to give a pretty uneducated answer here. I haven't been tracking a lot of the developments out of there. I mean, I think like India in general is well regarded for having a strong tech scene. Like the obvious project that everyone probably wants to talk about is, Polygon, formerly Matic. They've built out this massive, hundreds of millions, $billion ecosystem that like running complementary to Ethereum is doing quite well. Past that, I think I've seen a few of the like lending solutions, like is EasyFi out of India?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah. And then I remember there was also this like another NFT fractionalization platform that was also out of there. But those are like just the few projects that I'm aware of.
Awesome. So I also want to ask you, what do you think, how will our space, the blockchain industry, crypto industry, what do you think will it affect India? How will it affect? If you know, like if whatever you think, right? Like it might not be completely. Like, do you think any changes will come?
Yeah, I think that, or my impression is that there's a
Mm.
lot of focus on both programming and like larger tech companies. Like I've talked to a few people who have worked like a Microsoft branch in India. So I guess that the nice things about blockchain are making access a lot easier. So with a lot of teams being distributed these days, it's cool that, you know, something like Uniswap or like SushiSwap, for example, has, you know, contributors from various places. So I would expect that, you know, like people in India would probably be like in positions to contribute and work on, you know, distributed project like these. And that makes it a lot easier to, for example, do well or like have a position that provides a lot better than maybe like other like nearby tech areas or something like that.
Yeah, and it's already happening. I spoke to SushiSwap last week, and they have 2 developers from like India already, and like they're doing great work. So like we do see a decentralized world. So uh, to close things up, I would like to ask you, right? Like if someone wants to start with developing, get into coding, build for Ethereum, build for other chains, how do they get into that?
Yeah, I think Ethereum development is not a good place to start if you're new to coding. For that, probably something like, you know, Harvard CS51. It's like a often well recommended class that, you know, walks you through a lot of the basics of algorithms and some of the more common programming languages. But if you already have experience in something like Java or Python, like Solidity isn't too difficult to pick up. I think a lot of the caveats have to do with, you know, thinking about like security or threat vectors that don't happen in a normal context. I'm a really big fan of this book called Mastering Ethereum. One of the co-authors is Gavin Wood, you know, like one of the founders of Ethereum. You can find the book for free online. I think it's really great, even though it's a little bit outdated. It walks you through different code examples, comments them, as well as like the like idiosyncrasies of the Solidity language. So that's usually what I recommend to people who already know some coding.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So anything else we should be looking out from you? Like what's coming in the future?
Yeah, the last thing that I'm really excited about is I've been working with the ZkSync team on a project to let people mint and transfer and swap NFTs that are all minted on this layer 2. So that's really exciting that we're getting, you know, new low cost options for people who want to work with digital collectibles or artists. So I'm a big fan of ZkSync. I like NFTs. I'm really excited to hopefully bring this project out. Their mainnet support for NFTs has been like little under 2 weeks. So hopefully very soon.
Wow. That's coming soon. So basically cheaper NFTs are coming.
Yeah, on a powerful system that has security guarantees.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So thank you for taking your time out, and I learned a lot, and you're doing some interesting things, right? So we will put down your Twitter handle below if people have questions. I think they can reach out to you if they want to learn about your websites and what you're doing. The links will also be put in the description. So thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dara.